please. His mom is the kindest woman I've ever met. Miss Wexler planted herself in front of the door like a human barricade. Anyone who helps him leave gets reported for academic dishonesty. Through the desk holes, I could see my phone lighting up with texts. Please hurry, not much time left. 24 minutes left. That's when the principal's voice crackled over the intercom. Please send Archie Smith to the office for emergency family pickup. I was about to leave, but Miss Wexler walked to the intercom and pressed the button. Hospice said they made a mistake. The student is now taking a state exam. She turned back to me. Just because you tricked the principal doesn't mean you tricked me. She yanked the cord out of the wall. I started hyperventilating and knew I was having a panic attack. 20 minutes left. Suddenly, the foster kid who never speaks stood up. His mom's the only adult who remembered my birthday. Her cake was the first birthday cake I ever had. Please let him say goodbye to her. Sit down or you're expelled. You know what I think? She smiled. I bet she's not even sick. Her fingers flew across the keypad by the door. Probably just wants attention like you always do. Beep. Doors locked. Emergency shelter mode activated. 16 minutes left. Maya, the special needs student, was crying now. When everyone laughed at my stutter, his mom taught me breathing exercises. Every day for free EE. Well, don't blame me. Maybe if Archie spent less time visiting her and more time studying, he wouldn't need to fake emergencies. 12 minutes left. I was on my knees now, gasping. Please, she's dying. Miss Wexler turned on me with pure venom. Well, this is the same mother who got me written up last month. If your mom really is dying, then consider it karma. You're welcome. That's when Ashley, perfect straight A Ashley, who'd never gotten a detention in her life, climbed on her desk. I have something to confess. Miss Wexler whipped around. Ashley, what are you? I cheated on every test. I stole the answer keys. I hacked your computer. What? Check your computer. It's all there. I realized Ashley was distracting Miss Wexler so I could escape the classroom and see my mom. So I quickly grabbed a chair, turned toward the window, and swung as hard as I could. 6 minutes left. I ran like I'd never run before and sprinted to room 119. When I crashed through the door, completely out of breath with blood dripping from my hands, her eyes fluttered open. Mom, I love you so much. I'm so sorry. She squeezed my hand, gathering every bit of strength she had left. I love. Her mouth formed the shape of U, but no sound came. Her hand went slack in mine. The entire class burst through the door 5 minutes later. They'd all run after me, and the room was silent. Miss Wexler had stolen my mother's last words. When we returned to the classroom the next day, the school refused to acknowledge what had happened. But a few years later, when she died in the same hospice, no one in the town visited her, and she died alone. My wife gave me divorce papers and said, accept my side piece or we're done. I signed immediately. My wife Crystal texted me, grabbing lunch with Naomi, but Naomi was right next to me, helping me pick out a birthday gift for her. I showed her the text. What the hell? She told me she was staying home to clean the house. Nothing about going out. So she lied to me about being with Naomi, and she lied to Naomi about staying home. Whatever my wife was doing right now was something she didn't want even her best friend to know about, and that meant it had to be bad. Crystal walked in frantically at 10 p.m., saying traffic was bad, and she was going straight to bed. But I already knew she was a liar, so I checked her car for the truth. Glove box, just registration. Backseat, nothing. Center console had a watch. Another man's watch. I sat there holding it, trying to think of a single good reason it was there, but I landed in the same place every time. Asking her meant giving up the only proof I had, so I put it back. The next morning, Crystal came downstairs in a hoodie, and her hair placed strategically. When she turned to grab a mug, I realized it was to hide the hickey on her neck. I brushed her hair to the side and she lightly flinched. What happened here? Oh, that? I think I tweaked something at the gym. Be more careful. I will, babe. She kissed me while I stood there gripping the edge of the counter. 4 days later, I came home early from work and parked a few houses down. I walked to the house and saw the back door open. Then a half-naked man ran across my backyard, crossed the street, and got into a dark car. In our bedroom, Crystal was in workout clothes, doing squats with her hair all over the place, her face flushed and her breathing heavy. Hey babe, I started this new HIIT thing, and it is no joke. Even the bed was a mess. When she was in the shower, I went through her phone and saw texts from a Hudson. One stood out. My wife is getting suspicious. I told her I've been picking up extra shifts, but I don't think she believes me anymore. I found his wife's Facebook and sent her everything. She replied, thank you. I needed to know. I hired a divorce attorney the next day. Then weeks later, Crystal sat across from me and placed a folder between us. We need to talk. Divorce papers were inside. I've been seeing someone. His name is Hudson, and he makes me happy in ways you don't. I want to keep seeing him. You can either accept that, or we can end this marriage. Your choice. I signed every single page without reading a word. She was shocked. You're not even going to fight for this? No. I've known about Hudson for weeks. Good. Then you know I checked out of this marriage a long time ago. Hudson makes me feel wanted. That's why I hired a divorce attorney. She stood up yelling, you've been planning this behind my back? I scoffed. You've been sleeping with someone in our bed behind mine. Her hands trembled. I'll get my own lawyer. Sure, but you should know that Hudson's wife knows everything. She froze. You're not leaving this marriage for him, Crystal. You're You're just leaving it. The divorce was finalized months later, and she didn't end up with Hudson. My sister was late to pick me up, but when I called her, she yelled, "I'm on the way, I swear," but I could hear the party music in the background. It was pouring rain, and when she finally pulled up, I had a bad feeling. It smelled funny in her car, but when I asked if she was okay, she got mad. "Yes, don't start with me." I was really nervous, but just kept saying to myself that it was only 5 minutes. She sped out of the parking lot, almost hitting a tree. I gripped the door handle. "Please, slow down," but she just laughed. "You're such a baby." She stepped on the gas, singing along to Miley Cyrus. "Please, watch the road," I said. We were almost home, but she just yelled, "Shut up! I need to get you home so I can get back to Bronwyn's house." She sped up even more. I saw the light in front of us turn yellow, but she didn't slow down. It turned red. "Hey, it's red!" But the music was too loud. She didn't hear me. She finally looked. As we blew right through the red light, I saw the pickup truck. Everything went in slow motion. I heard her scream at the last second. Its headlights came straight towards us and slammed into my door. Glass went everywhere, and the car flipped 3 times. I opened my eyes and looked around. Something in my leg felt wrong. I saw red and blue lights, and someone screamed, "Can you hear me? Hey!" They tried to pull me out. "Don't worry, buddy. We almost got you." Everything went black. I opened my eyes and heard my mom crying. And when I tried to sit up, she stopped me. My whole family was watching me. My sister was in the corner saying, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." My parents kept telling me she didn't mean it, that it was an accident. Mean what? What happened? But when I tried to stand up, nothing moved. I looked down, and the blanket was flat. And that's when I realized my leg was just empty space. I looked at my family and realized why they were so horrified. My friend walked into school wearing a full suit with a tie covered in tiny fried chicken drumsticks. Our principal stopped him in the hallway. "That tie is distracting." "Sir, it's a suit. The chicken is for nutrition awareness." He couldn't say anything back to a kid in a suit, so the next day he banned all food imagery on clothing. That's when the rest of us got involved. I came in with a white shirt and a QR code on the front. Told him it was my digital portfolio. By lunch, half the school had scanned it, and the hallways were full of kids whispering "fried chicken" in British, Australian, and Southern accents, because the QR code was a 10-hour loop of people saying fried chicken in different accents. He banned QR codes on clothing. Next week, I wore a shirt covered in dots. He asked what it was. "Braille, sir. I'm promoting accessibility." He called in the school nurse to read it. She looked at it and said out loud, "I want some fried chicken right now." The whole office lost it. He banned Braille on clothing. I came back Monday with a landscape painting on my shirt. He stared at it and scratched his head. "The clouds look like chicken." I shrugged. "Sir, that sounds like a personal problem." He stood there for 5 minutes trying to find a rule against chicken-shaped clouds. That afternoon, his voice came over the intercom. "The dress code is done, but if I see one more piece of fried chicken imagery in any form, you are all getting suspended." The whole thing died down for a while, until a few weeks later, the principal walked into the cafeteria on Fried Chicken and Watermelon Day. He looked around at the plates, his eyes rolled back, and he fainted. They rushed him out on a stretcher. I pulled the lever and hit the jackpot, winning $300,000. But when I went to collect, there was a problem. The owner showed me a picture of my own face on their card counters list and said I was banned, so they couldn't give me the money. Now, this was my first time at a casino ever, so I argued this was impossible. They took me into the back and showed me footage from a few days ago. The man on it counting cards was definitely me. How was this possible? The casino ushered me out and told me to not come back. But I wasn't giving up. I was convinced they were just trying to not pay me and kept the winning ticket. I hired a private investigator and paid him $5,000. A week later, he came back saying he'd found something strange. The casino's security video wasn't tampered or anything like that. I was indeed on it, counting cards, but there was something else. The man on video had a different name and address to me. He gave me the information, and I drove over, not knowing what to expect. When the door opened, I froze in place. Someone who looked just like me was staring back. I called my mom on video, and after seeing us, she broke down and admitted we were twins, separated at birth because they only had enough money for one of us. My brother grabbed his documentation, and we drove to the casino. The owner still tried to deny me, but because I still had my winning ticket, I was able to collect my $300,000. My teacher stormed into class and yelled, "Who here watches anime?" 10 of us raised our hands, and she pointed to the door, telling us to go outside. She led us through the hallways in silence to the principal's office, where a police officer was waiting with a notepad. We sat down, and the teacher stood at the front with her arms crossed. "Who has seen Dragon Ball Z?" 9 hands went up, and she pointed at the kid with his hand down. Back to class. She walked over to the principal's computer and pulled up an image. 5 characters from Naruto. "Name them, right now." 2 kids just stared at the screen, and she pointed them to the door. Then she held up a quote and handed out blank slips, angrily telling us to write down what anime it was from. I wrote one piece, but 2 kids handed theirs back empty and left. Me and my friend John were among the 5 left. John was shaking, and I didn't know why, but I saw the police officer note it. The teacher slammed a blank paper in front of everyone with instructions on the board. board. Finally, draw a face in manga style. 3 of the kids' pencils never moved. The teacher looked at me and John. You two draw manga, yes? We nodded and she said, good. Go grab your manga art and bring it back here. The rest of you are free to go. We walked out and I kept wondering what the hell this was about. We came back with our sketchbooks, but this time the teacher's daughter was here too, and she was crying. She was John's crush in our class, but she hadn't raised her hand earlier, so what was she doing here? Just as I was about to ask, the teacher took our drawings. She handed both sketchbooks to her daughter, who started flipping through. She stopped on one of John's pages and pointed at it. That's the one. She wiped her tears and walked out. The officer stood and walked to John, grabbing his hands and cuffing them behind his back. You have the right to remain silent. John had a guilty expression as they led him out the door. I stood there confused and shocked. What just happened? The teacher started crying, and the principal spoke for her. Remember Secret Santa last week? He asked me. Someone gave her daughter a hand-drawn manga, multiple pages. The teacher spoke through tears. That manga was lowly content. My underage daughter was drawn in explicit scenarios with characters from Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, and One Piece. My friend in the back seat yelled, "There's no cops, just go." So I looked both ways and ran the red light. But as soon as I did, red and blue lights lit up right behind us. Both my friends in the back seat started screaming at me to floor it and lose him. I hadn't had a single drink all night, but they'd had enough for all 3 of us. The cop was at my window before I even put it in park. I handed him my license and my friend leaned over my shoulder. Officer, he's actually a really good driver. The cop raised an eyebrow. Sir, have you been drinking tonight? My friend sat up straight. No sir, we were at a library. A library at 2 in the morning? It was a 24-hour library for studying. I shook my head. The cop opened the back doors and both my friends spilled out. One of them grabbed the window crank trying to pull himself up. The other one stood up and his whole body started rocking back and forth. The cop looked at me. You're clearly sober, but I still have to write you a ticket for the light. One of my friends stumbled over. Officer, what if we pay the ticket right now? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of Monopoly money. I've got like 500 here. The cop stared at the bills. Sir, that's not real money. My friend looked down at the bills. That explains why McDonald's wouldn't take it earlier. The cop bit his lip, trying not to laugh. My other friend yelled, "Wait, I can fix this," and tried to do a cartwheel. He went sideways and landed face first in a bush. The cop handed me the ticket, shaking his head, and my friend tried getting up from the bush and fell right back into it. While walking my daughter to school, I noticed a mime on our street with a sign that said, 7 days until it happens. He had a notebook out and was writing things down, handing out drawings to people who walked by. My daughter thought he was hilarious and ran over to give him a coin. He took it, staying perfectly in character, and waved at her in slow motion while smiling with these wide eyes. Over the next few days, he never left. His sign now said 5 days, and he was tying elaborate knots with a rope, spinning them into shapes while people threw money and clapped. By the time it said 3 days, he was crouched over a padlock, showing the crowd how to break it with a bobby pin, and people were filming and laughing. But with 2 days left, I noticed something odd. He'd only pick up his notebook and write it in when I was with my daughter. If I walked by alone, his notebook stayed on the ground, and the day his sign said 1 day left, he wasn't performing at all. He was just standing completely still, and when my daughter waved at him, he didn't wave back for the first time all week. The next morning, he was gone. I was creeped out, but tried to ignore it, and just went to work as normal. But around 2 p.m., my daughter called me. She whispered, "Daddy, there's someone in our house." I couldn't believe what I was hearing and went pale. I told her to lock herself in the bathroom because I was coming, and called the police, telling them everything. I sprinted out to my car and immediately hit the accelerator, running every red light on the way, praying my daughter was still alive. When I got to my street, I saw my front door wide open. My stomach sank, and I ran inside instantly, expecting the worst. That's when I saw the mime's notebook and the bobby pin he'd been performing with on the drawer. I ran around the house and found the mime standing in the middle of my daughter's room. He was holding a rope, but when he saw me, he didn't even run. He just smiled and said, "She looks just like her." I slammed him into the wall and held him there until I heard the sirens. Police arrested the mime, and while I was hugging my daughter, told me that 3 years ago he'd lost custody. His wife took their 10-year-old and vanished, so he'd been drifting between cities, finding girls who looked like his daughter to try take home. He was homeless, so the money people gave paid for the ropes and tools, and the tricks he performed were him practicing the kidnapping skills. "If you're going to drink, I'd rather you do it in the house," my mom said to me and my friends. She set bottles of vodka and rum on the kitchen counter. "Ground rules," she said. "Nobody leaves until morning, nobody drives, and if anyone gets sick, you come get me immediately." My best friend Seth was already reaching for the vodka. My crush Lola whispered that my mom was the coolest parent she'd ever met. Mom poured everyone's first drink herself, then disappeared upstairs. The first hour felt like a movie. Everyone was dancing and laughing way too loud. Seth kept saying he couldn't feel his face, and Lola was spinning around with her eyes closed, bumping into furniture. Some kid was giving a speech about how much he loved everyone, and two girls were in the corner crying about being best friends forever. Then things started getting weird. This girl came up to me and said, "You know, nobody actually thinks you're funny, right? Everyone just laughs because they feel bad for you." I tried to shake it off when Seth grabbed my shoulder. "Bro, I need to tell you something. I've been hooking up with your ex for like 2 months. I told him I needed some air, and he called after me saying he was sorry. I found Lola and told her what Seth said. He's an idiot," she said. That's when I noticed Danny watching us. He'd been acting drunker than anyone all night. He stumbled over and said to Lola, "You look like you need to sit down somewhere quiet. There's a room back here. I'll stay with you." "She's fine," I told him, but he ignored me. He started guiding her away. I followed and watched him pin her against the wall. "Everything is going to be okay," he said. That's when my mom's voice cut through the music. "Everyone stop what you're doing." Everyone went silent. She went straight to the bottles. "This is water," she said. "None of you have had a drop of alcohol." The room froze. I wanted to see who you really were when you thought you had an excuse, and now I know exactly who each of you is. Her eyes locked onto Danny. "You thought she was drunk, and you tried to get her alone in a bedroom." He started to speak, but she cut him off. "You knew exactly what you were doing." She made every person at that party call their parents and explain what they did. The emo kid came into class with a giant black duffel bag. The class turned around and watched in horror as he tore it open. Inside was a batch of bright cupcakes. We were all shocked because it was the first time anyone had seen him smile, but as he started to give them out, he passed by my table and whispered, "This is how I wanted to say goodbye before tomorrow." I didn't know what he meant, and I made the mistake of thinking it was just a weird joke. But the next morning, I was sitting in class when I heard my principal shouting on the intercom, "There's a shooter. Everyone go into lockdown." Our teacher ran to the front of the class to lock the door as fast as he could, but it was too late. The glass of our classroom door shattered into pieces as a bullet went through it. We all ducked under the tables to hide, and as I glanced up, I saw the emo kid's face through the window. For a second, we locked eyes, and he hesitated to shoot again, and I was hoping he would spare my life. But he fired again. This time, the bullet missed me by less than 2 inches, but he wasn't giving up. He walked up to me and stood over me, pointing the device right at my head. He looked at the uneaten cupcake on my table, and I thought that would make him even more mad. But that's when he completely broke down and started to cry. My heart was pounding out of my chest because I didn't know what he was going to do next. But he lowered his device and began to whisper so quietly I could barely hear him. He said, "You left the cupcake on the table. You remembered." I just nodded. You see, me and the emo kid used to be childhood friends, and when his mom was in the hospital with cancer, I was the only one in our class who went to the hospital with him. I never knew what to say, so I just brought her cupcakes because she was always the one who baked them for us. She smiled and said, "Save me one for when I come home from the hospital." She never came home, and after that, I promised the emo kid I would never eat a cupcake again, and now he was realizing that I kept my promise. He dropped to the ground and began to weep. The SWAT team wasted no time in barging into the classroom and escorting him out. Turns out he had already injured over 10 students, so he was given life in prison. I made more money than I ever had in my life, and I've never felt more broke. It started when my manager caught me eating an expired yogurt out of the dumpster on my lunch break because I couldn't afford to buy one inside. He fired me on the spot. With rent due and no job, I was up late scrolling Craigslist, looking for anything that could save me. That's when I saw a posting that said, "Professional line stander needed, $25 an hour." I immediately called the number that night, and by the end of the week, I was standing outside a bakery at 4 in the morning, waiting for croissants going to some celebrity's birthday party. $200 for standing still. I paid rent that month for the first time in 3. The next call was $500 to wait in line at a hot dog cart and throw 2 hot dogs in the trash right in front of the girl working the counter, his ex. I watched her face drop as I dumped them in the garbage. I felt sick walking away from that one, but I used the money to move into my own apartment that week. The gigs kept coming and the money kept climbing. New clothes, a car that actually started, bills paid before they were due. Then I got a call from some executive who wanted me at a children's hospital to stand in line with the families and time how long each kid's treatment took. I walked in and saw parents holding their sick kids waiting for their names to be called. A little girl in a wheelchair rolled up to me and tugged on my sleeve. "Are you here for treatment too?" I looked down at her. "My mom says I'm getting better, but I think I'm gonna see my daddy in heaven soon. I miss him." I looked at the clipboard in my hands. I set it on the chair and walked out. My phone rang the entire drive home. I never picked up. The money was good, but I felt like I was losing a piece of myself with every gig. I work at a grocery store now. It pays less than the line work, but they let me take home the expired food instead of firing me for eating it. "You got the stuff?" Nico looked both ways, opened his locker, and slid out a water bottle. He'd figured out something something with Monster, pre-workout powder, and espresso shots that turned a water bottle into a weapon. He called it Rocket Fizz. $3 each. One bottle. And you were Einstein for at least 3 hours, but your heart would have to figure it out later. One kid's hands were shaking so bad in first period, he couldn't hold his pencil, but he told the teacher he was just cold. Nobody said a word because everybody was hooked like a fish. Nico was pulling $200 a day out of a locker. Every morning when he'd open his locker before first period, a line would already be there waiting. If you weren't on Rocket Fizz, you weren't playing on an even field, so within 2 weeks, half the school was buying. Then Brody drank 3 before gym class, and by the third lap of the mile, his face was soaked and he was breathing through his mouth. The gym teacher blew his whistle. "Brody, get off the track. You don't look right." Brody waved him off and went down mid-stride face first. They wheeled him out on a stretcher, and his heart rate was so high the paramedics thought the monitor was broken. Turns out Brody's heart didn't figure it out. Next morning, the principal called an emergency assembly and walked to the microphone holding one of Nico's bottles above his head. "We had this tested by a lab, and what came back should scare every single one of you. 800 milligrams of caffeine in one bottle. The FDA says 400 is the limit for a full-grown adult. This is double that." Every head in the gym turned toward Nico. "These drinks are banned. Anyone caught selling them will be suspended." Someone in the back started a slow clap, and within 5 seconds the entire gym was applauding. The principal leaned into the mic. "This is not funny." That afternoon they found 50 bottles in Nico's locker, organized by flavor. They suspended him for a week, and when he came back, kids swarmed him in the hallway. "Bro, please, finals are in 2 weeks. Name your price." Nico shook his head. "I'm retired. I still had 2 left from before the ban. Drank 1 the morning of my history final, and when the teacher asked why my hands were shaking, I told her I was just cold. My heart would figure it out." My girlfriend dumped me over a Spotify playlist. We were driving to New York when my girlfriend asked me to add some songs to our road trip playlist. I added Sweet Home Alabama and Country Roads, thinking we could shout the lyrics to them. But the second the first song played, she made a U-turn right in the middle of the road. "Baby, what the hell are you doing?" I asked. But then she burst into tears and said, "I'm breaking up with you." I sat there completely lost, but she just sped back to my apartment and dropped me at the curb. I had no idea what just happened, so I called her best friend to figure it out. But her voice came through cold. "I know what you did. You're disgusting. Never call this number again." I tried calling her back, but she already blocked me. Then the next morning, I saw Lorelai had posted a picture kissing her ex with the caption, "I know where home is." I sat there confused, wondering how she could run back to the ex who cheated on her 4 times the day after dumping me. But before I could even process that, someone knocked on my door. It was Lorelai's mom. "I wanted to thank you for showing your true colors before things got more serious," she smiled. "By adding music, she asked me to add." I asked. She laughed. "Of course you don't understand. I knew you weren't right for my daughter." I felt like I was losing my mind, so I drove straight to Lorelai's house. She opened the door and looked annoyed. "Lorelai, what the hell is going on?" She crossed her arms. "It was a test, and you failed." "A test for what?" "Every woman in my family tests her boyfriend with a small favor to see if he only thinks of himself. You added country music when all I listen to is K-pop, so you failed." I rubbed my face. "Lorelai, this is insane." Her eyes got cold. "My ex added Blackpink, which is my favorite band, so he passed." At that point, I realized I'd dodged a bullet. Then a year later, I saw her engagement announcement to her ex, and because I still had her Spotify, I added a country song for their wedding playlist. I was abandoned on a random doorstep and taken in by an old Chinese lady named Shin. She raised me and taught me Cantonese and was the only mom I ever knew. But at 21, we got into a car accident. Shin was fine, but I had to relearn to walk and talk, and my Cantonese never came back. I couldn't communicate with Shin and found myself at a coffee shop planning to take my life. That's when a woman named Gwen walked in, holding my favorite book. She sat down, and we fell in love because everything she said was perfect. 5 years into our marriage, our dream house went up for sale. Gwen talked about it constantly, but we couldn't afford it. Shin had Alzheimer's, and I was paying for her hospice. But this was my wife, so I started working a second job without telling Gwen, saving for a down payment to surprise her. But that's when I noticed Gwen was hiding her phone. She claimed to be working overtime, but no extra money came in, and would go white and change the subject when I asked. So one night, I decided to follow her and find out myself. But while I was driving, I got a call that changed everything. Shin had become lucid for the first time in years. She had something to tell me and couldn't die without it. I hired a Cantonese translator and rushed to the hospital. Shin grabbed my hand the moment I sat down and started speaking to the translator, pointing at my wedding ring. The translator spoke. "She's talking about how you met your wife. She's saying she paid Gwen to meet you." My jaw dropped. "After your accident, you wanted to end your life. So Shin paid Gwen to befriend you so you'd want to live again. You were never supposed to fall in love with her." I stared at Shin. She reached under her pillow and pulled out a receipt. "Elite Companionship Services." Suddenly, Gwen's face-down phone and longer hours came back to me. I thought about the second job, the lack of sleep, and the meals I'd been skipping, all to buy a house for a woman who was paid to be with me and probably cheating. Jin died 15 minutes later. I went home. When Gwen came in, I showed her Shin's death certificate. Gwen moved to hug me, but I didn't hug back and pulled out the companionship receipt. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Gwen stayed silent. And the longer hours, I continued. The phone face down? What was that? Cheating? Did you ever actually love me? Gwen's eyes filled with tears. I can't hide this anymore. She opened a drawer and pulled out a binder, and I mentally prepared to see divorce papers, but instead, bank statements fell out. A separate savings account I'd never seen with 20,000. Shin paid me to love, she said. But on day one, that job became real. I need you to believe that. She pulled out the listing of our dream house as well as a house key. I realized she'd been working to surprise me, just like I was working to surprise her. I was playing Minecraft in history class when the girl behind me whispered, "Is that the Battle of Versailles you're building?" I looked down at my half-finished castle. It's just a random castle. You should make it historically accurate. The real Versailles had symmetrical wings and a central courtyard. I'm not one to turn down a challenge, especially when it means I get to keep gaming in class. I pulled up a reference image and got to work. By the end of that class, I had a decent replica of Versailles, and Katie had spent the whole period feeding me historical details instead of falling asleep. The next day, 3 more kids were huddled around my screen giving input. By Friday, half the class was either watching or contributing to what had become a full recreation of revolutionary France. Katie came in the following Monday and said, "Could you build the major battle sites? It would really help me study for the test." That weekend, I set up a school Minecraft server and mapped out an entire historical world. Students could log in and walk through events in order. I added signs with dates and details at every location. For 6 weeks, test scores were up. Attendance was perfect, and I was actually remembering the history because I had to build it. Then during a parent-teacher conference, some freshman walked his mom through the server to show her how he was studying. She happened to be on the school board. The next morning, the principal's voice came over the PA. "Effective immediately, all access to gaming websites, including Minecraft." And yes, he said it as 2 separate words. "Is permanently blocked on school networks." Test scores dropped back down within a month. Attendance went back to normal. The school's new solution for engaging students was a mandatory PowerPoint presentation every Friday. Nobody learned a thing, but at least we weren't gaming. When the light turned green, I went to press the gas, but my foot wouldn't move. "Daddy, go," Mia said from the back seat, kicking my seat the way she did every morning when we stopped at the light 2 blocks from her school. Something was wrong with me, and I couldn't tell her. I tried again, and my foot still wouldn't move. The horn behind me started up, short beeps, then long ones, then one long blast that didn't stop. I squeezed the wheel as hard as I could, and my hand wouldn't even tighten. "Daddy," Mia said, but my head wouldn't turn. I tried to say her name, and my mouth wouldn't work. In the mirror, I watched a woman throw her own door open and march toward my window. My body started shaking, and I couldn't make it stop. The edges of my vision went black, and the mirror started to disappear. "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, what's wrong?" Mia's voice climbed each time. The woman got to my window screaming, "What is wrong with you?" Her eyes locked onto my face, and the screaming stopped. "Oh my God, oh my God, can you hear me?" She pulled out her phone without taking her eyes off me. "I've got an active stroke, male, 40-something. Send everything." She got me out of the car and laid me on my side on the road. She kept her hand on my shoulder until the sirens came. I'd had a stroke at a green light, and she was a nurse on her way to work. She rode in the ambulance holding Mia's hand the whole way. I survived with some weakness on my right side. The doctors said another few minutes and I wouldn't have made it home. Mia still sends her a card every Christmas that just says, "Thank you for being mad at us. If a single one of you fails my test, I'll make sure the whole class gets held back." All of us were shaking because his tests were impossible. He handed them out, and when we read the first question, we all looked at each other. Some students were crying. Nobody's pencil were moving. But then, our teacher's phone rang. He walked out of the room to answer it, closing the door behind him. We knew this was our chance. "What did you get for number 1? But nobody knew a thing. But just as Mitch flipped to the back, his eyes lit up. He held up his page. "Guys, I think this is the answer key." Then, the handle turned. Everyone went silent. The teacher walked in, glared at all of us, and said, "Sorry guys, my wife's calling. I'll be back in 2 minutes. No cheating." He shut the door. Everyone looked at Mitch. Instantly, everyone ran over to his desk, memorizing answers, fighting for a peek. We were all trying to read them, shoving each other aside. 30 seconds left. "Give me that!" We all started to learn what the Pythagorean theorem meant. Every equation, every definition. I heard him walking up to the door. "He's coming." We ran back to our desks, but I saw it. The answer key was still out. The handle turned, but I said, "The key, hide it quick." Mitch's eyes went wide, but he walked in. Did someone say something? Everyone was silent. He glared at us, then at Mitch. I looked closer, and his cheeks were puffed. He put the test in his mouth. Our teacher walked by and sat down. We all started writing, but when I handed in my test, he said, "Wait." My heart was racing. "Do you have something to tell me?" Oh no, I was busted. He leaned in, squinting. I sighed. "I'm sorry. Someone left an answer key on Mitch's desk. We all copied off of it." "You guys memorized every answer and copied them all down? Do you realize what that is?" I was ready ready to repeat the year. Yes, sir, it's cheating. But he put his hand on my shoulder. Wait, what? He smiled. That's called studying. Who do you think left it there? The first punch I ever threw put someone in the hospital. I'd never been in a fight. Not in middle school when kids picked on me. Not in high school when someone keyed my car. Not in college when a drunk guy shoved me outside a bar. I always walked away. People called me calm, patient, level-headed. But my little sister is the one thing in my life I'm not calm about. She's 16. Last Saturday, she went to a party and I told her to call me if anything happened. She called at midnight with her voice shaking. Some guy wouldn't take no for an answer. Followed her outside when she tried to leave. Cornered her by the cars. She got away, but he grabbed her arm hard enough to leave bruises. I broke every speed limit getting there, and my hands were shaking the whole way. Not from fear, something else. Something I'd never felt before. I parked crooked on the lawn and didn't care. She was sitting on the curb when I pulled up, arms wrapped around herself. The second I saw the bruises on her arm, 23 years of walking away went quiet. Which one? She looked up at me with mascara running down her face. It doesn't matter, just take me home. Which one? She pointed at the house. Backyard. Backwards cap. I told her to wait in the car. She begged me not to go inside. I went anyway. I walked through the house like I owned it and found him out back surrounded by friends, laughing, living his best life, while my sister sat on a curb shaking. I grabbed his shoulder and spun him around. He looked annoyed until he saw my face. We got a problem? You grabbed my little sister. He rolled his eyes. Bro, what are you talking about? The girl by the cars, the one who said no, the one you bruised. His friends went quiet. Everyone was watching. Then he made a mistake. He laughed. She was overreacting. I barely touched her. My fist connected with his jaw before I knew what I was doing. He hit the ground, and I didn't stop. I don't remember deciding to keep swinging. I just remember the sound. His friends pulled me off eventually. By the time I stood up, my knuckles were split open, and he wasn't moving. I walked back through the house, and the same people who stared at me on the way in were pressed against the walls now. Got to my car. My sister was in the passenger seat crying. What did you do? I didn't answer. Just started driving. We were halfway home before I saw the lights in my mirror, blue and red. I pulled over and told her everything was going to be okay. I wasn't sure if I was lying. The cop walked up to my window and saw my knuckles, the blood. Step out of the vehicle, please. I did. Hands where he could see them. He looked at my sister through the window and saw her arm, the bruises. Then back at me. Someone want to tell me what happened tonight. My sister got out before I could stop her and told him everything. The party. The guy who wouldn't leave her alone. The grabbing. Me showing up. The cop listened without writing anything down. When she finished, he looked at me for a long time. The kid back there wants to press charges. I figured. He looked at my sister's arm again, then at me. Off the record, I have a daughter her age. He closed his notepad and tapped it against his palm twice. Drive safe. I never got charged. He never apologized. People still call me the calm one. They're right. I am calm. They just don't test it anymore. The day before our final exam, our teacher told us that to get an A, all we had to do was nothing. The instructions are simple, he continued. Tomorrow you'll walk in, sit down, and stay in your seat doing nothing for 1 hour. Do that, and you'll pass this ethics class. Stand up for any reason, and you fail. We looked around. There had to be a catch. The next day, we walked in and sat down. There weren't any pens or papers. For the first 10 minutes, we sat in silence, wondering if this was really happening. Mr. Rogers just read his book and didn't even look at us. Then 15 minutes and the door opened. Sophie walked in late. She'd joined us earlier this year and rarely ever came into class. Mr. Rogers slammed his book shut. You're late. He walked toward her. Sophie froze. My mom was just, I don't care about your mom. Mr. Rogers snapped, interrupting her. Now sit down. Maybe if you sit for long enough, you'll actually amount to something. Sophie walked to her desk with her head low. Nobody said a word. 5 minutes later, Mr. Rogers walked to Sophie's desk with her manuscript. He leaned over her. I just read your file again. D's and F's across the board. What's your excuse? You cut yourself last year? The energy in the air shifted at once. Sophie teared up, but Mr. Rogers kept going. He held Sophie's transcript up for the class to see. This is what a failure and a cheater looks like. Missing my class, then conveniently showing up for the exam. A kid yelled out, this was unnecessary. Mr. Rogers responded that if he wants to help her, he can. But you'll lose your grade. The kid stayed seated. Mr. Rogers leaned back over and continued verbally assaulting Sophie, calling her stupid, insulting her home life, and telling Sophie her mom wishes she was never born. By now, Sophie was sobbing, and when Mr. Rogers slammed his hands on her desk and told her to stop crying, she just slid off her chair onto the floor. He stood over her and grabbed her arm, yanking her up. Then he let go, and she dropped back to the floor. Somebody should do something, a girl whispered through tears. Not me. I need this grade, the kid next to her said without looking up. Sophie was hyperventilating on on the floor, and Mr. Rogers walked back to his desk to read like she wasn't even there. The only sound in the entire room were Sophie's sobs. That's when a girl named Mary stood up. She walked to Sophie, knelt down, and wrapped her arms around her. She helped her to her feet and wiped Sophie's tears. Mr. Rogers looked up. "You just failed my exam." Mary looked right at him. "Then fail me. You're all pathetic anyway." She walked Sophie out, and the door slammed behind them. We sat in silence for the remaining 30 minutes. When the bell rang, nobody moved. Mr. Rogers walked to the front. Sophie wasn't real. He looked at us. She was a theater student I'd paid to be here. He told us everything he said to her today was scripted and she was fine. And then he dropped the bomb. Mary was the only one who passed. Because this was ethics class, and sometimes you need to break a rule to help someone in need. During our geometry test, the smartest kid in class finished in 10 minutes, slammed his pencil down, and yelled, "Done." Then he walked over to the girl next to him who was still on problem 3, grabbed her paper, scribbled a wrong answer on it, and walked away laughing while she started crying. Our teacher watched the whole thing and didn't say a word. But the next week, she told us she'd set up something special. A girl from the high school math team was coming to find kids good enough for their summer program. The kid everyone called Einstein shot both hands in the air. He'd been telling everyone all year he was too smart for our class. "Pick me. I've been ready for this my whole life." Our teacher smiled. "I was hoping you'd volunteer." The girl from the math team walked in and handed him a marker. "Take your time." A problem popped up on the board. He didn't even wait. He started writing and talking at the same time like he was teaching a class. "See, this is basic stuff if you actually know what you're doing. Most people mess this up, but watch." He filled half the board with numbers and symbols that looked real to a bunch of 7th graders. He stepped back and turned to the class, grinning. "Any questions?" She crossed her arms and nodded. Really impressive confidence. That problem is something we give seniors. He was already looking around the room, soaking it in when she finished. "And nothing you wrote is even close. It's complete nonsense." His smile dropped. The room went dead silent. "I don't even know what you were trying to do up there." He stood at the board with the marker still in his hand and didn't move. The girl he'd grabbed the paper from raised her hand. Our teacher called on her. She walked to the board, erased everything he wrote, and solved it in 2 minutes. She set the marker down on his desk and looked at him. More like Doofenstein. The whole class started laughing. His eyes started watering. He grabbed his bag and waddled toward the door, crying. His foot caught the leg of a desk, and he went face first into the floor. The laughs got even louder. Our family was extremely poor, but then one day my 12-year-old brother started coming home with extra cash, new sneakers, and gold watches. I instantly asked, "Where did you get these?" And he just shrugged. "Kids at school give me stuff for winning games." But he was in 6th grade. Who gives out gold watches for winning rock, paper, scissors? I was confused and worried. So after work the next day, I followed him after school. I saw him rounding the corner of the gym building, and minutes later, I heard aggressive shouting coming from there. I ran over and saw a crowd of kids in a circle chanting and yelling, "Get him! Swing!" And when I pushed through, my stomach dropped. This was a fight ring, and my 12-year-old brother was in the middle getting swung at by a 12th grader. My heart broke, and I felt like a failure. My little brother thought he had to put himself through beatings to put food on our table. I started pushing through the crowd to pull him out, but then I froze. My brother slipped the punch and cracked the bigger kid with a right hand that dropped him. The crowd went crazy, but I just froze. My brother had never trained a day. The kid got back up. "Come here, you brat!" But my brother put him down again. Just like that, the kid was out, and my brother raised his hands in the air. The organizer took off his sneakers and handed them to my brother. Everyone cheered, and I did too, before quickly catching myself and sneaking out. I knew instantly my brother had talent, so I walked to the sketchy gas station nearby and applied for an overnight job immediately. When my brother came home, I said, "I found some extra money Granddad left us. I want to put you in a boxing gym." He looked at me suspiciously. "This place is rough. I want you to be able to defend yourself." He stared for a long moment, then agreed. My brother never found out about my second job or that I knew about the fight ring, but now he's a professional boxer who got our family out of poverty. He still thinks Granddad left that money. The same thing my dad kicked me out for is what brought me back to him. In my family, every man enlists. My grandfather was a Marine, and my dad retired as a colonel. But while my cousins were playing soldier in the backyard, I was the one wrapping up their cuts when they got hurt. Being a nurse was the only thing I ever wanted. So on my 18th birthday, when my dad put enlistment papers on the kitchen table, I told him no. He slammed his fists on the table. "No son of mine is going to wipe old people's tushies for a living." He slid a duffel bag across the table. "Sign the papers or use that to pack your stuff." I was out by dawn. I worked nights and put myself through nursing school. 5 years later, I walked into the county hospital for my first shift, and they handed me a chart nobody else wanted. A Vietnam vet named Dave. PTSD so bad he'd fought 3 nurses that week alone. I walked into his room and froze. Same crew cut as my dad. Same stubborn look on his face. He pointed at the door. "Get out." I pulled up a chair and sat down. He didn't talk to me for 3 days. I came back every shift and sat in that same chair. chair. On the fourth night, he had a bad episode. The other nurses called for security. I walked back into his room and sat down next to him. He was shaking and gripping the bed rails. I didn't say anything. I just stayed. Somewhere around 2 in the morning, he started talking. Not about the war, about his son, how he pushed him away, how he was too proud to call, how he'd give anything to see him walk through that door. After that night, he'd grab my arm every time I walked in and say, "There's my guy." A few weeks later, my mom called. My dad was in the hospital. I hadn't seen him in 5 years. I thought about Dave waiting for a son who never came. I hung up and drove straight there. I walked into his room. He looked at me, and a tear rolled down his face, but he didn't say a word. I pulled up a chair and grabbed his hand. I thought I had a superpower. I was dead wrong. When I was little, I genuinely believed I was a superhero. Sleep man. I could fall asleep at a moment's notice and stay asleep through anything. I'd close my eyes sitting up and be out cold in seconds. My friends thought I was some kind of magician. My family made fun of me for falling asleep in school and during movies. The only weird part was that no matter how much I slept, I was always exhausted. But I figured my body just loved sleep so much it always wanted more. Then I was driving home from school one afternoon, and the sleepiness hit me like a warm, heavy blanket dropping over my whole body. The next thing I knew, I heard crunching metal and shattering glass. My arms were covered in blood. I had fallen asleep and hit the car in front of me at full speed. I stumbled out of the car shaking and saw the other driver pulling a little girl out of the back seat, both of them screaming in a way that I will never be able to unhear. I kept saying, oh God, I'm sorry," but they couldn't hear me over their own sobbing. When my blood alcohol came back clean, they sent me to a specialist who told me the devastating truth. I didn't have a superpower. I had narcolepsy. I can't drive anymore because there is no predicting when my brain will shut off. I wanted to be a teacher, but I can't be responsible for a room full of kids when I might collapse mid-sentence. The gift I bragged about my entire childhood ended up taking everything I thought my future would be. But the worst part is that little girl. She's in a wheelchair for the rest of her life because I thought falling asleep was my superpower, when really it was my curse. "Sit down. Nobody is leaving until I finish my lesson." The fire alarm was screaming, and my chemistry teacher had both arms braced against the doorframe. Every other class was already filing into the hallway. Goodwin shut the door and crossed her arms. 15 years in this building, and I have never once been wrong about a drill. Page 41, everyone. The only person between us and the exit cared more about her lesson than our lives. A kid in the front row raised his hand. "Miss, drills don't last this long. It's been like 2 minutes." She smiled at him. "Sweetie, the system glitches every spring. Give it a minute. Start reading." A smell of burnt plastic pushed through the vents with something sharper underneath, and the kid next to me covered his nose. "Ms. Goodwin, that smells like actual smoke." She sniffed once and waved her hand. "That's the heating unit cycling on. If I evacuated every time this building smelled funny, you people would never learn a thing." I texted my sister down the hall, and she wrote back in 3 seconds. "Kitchen fire. Everyone outside. Where are you?" I walked up and held my phone in Goodwin's face. She read it, pushed my hand away. "A text from a 16-year-old is not a verified source. Sit down." Through the door window, every classroom was dark, and a teacher ran past with a fire extinguisher. I pointed at the glass. "There's nobody left." She didn't turn around. Eyes on page 41, not the hallway. The kid in the front row stood up. She grabbed the strap of his backpack and he yanked it free. "Suspend me. At least I'll be alive to serve it." He shoved past her, and we poured through the door behind him. The smoke in the hallway was so thick we couldn't read the exit signs, and every classroom we passed was dark and empty. We were the last people in the building. We made it to the parking lot coughing. The fire chief told us the ceiling in our hallway collapsed 90 seconds after we cleared it. They found Goodwin still at her desk grading papers and had to put her on oxygen just to get her out. The principal walked up to the ambulance. 15 years and you trapped 22 kids in a burning building. You're done." Goodwin pulled the mask to the side. "Did anyone grab the lab reports?" My daughter came home from kindergarten and asked me, "Daddy, what does adopted mean?" My heart instantly stopped because I did adopt her, but I hadn't told her yet. I asked where she heard that word, and she said, "My teacher told me I was adopted." My jaw dropped, and I knelt beside her and took her hands. "What did your teacher say being adopted means, sweetheart?" My daughter looked at the ground. She said it means nobody wanted me. I was furious and instantly pulled out my phone to write a complaint to the school, but then my daughter tugged my sleeve. "Daddy, don't be mad." I looked at her. "Why?" "Because I told her that's not true. My daddy picked me out of everyone in the whole world. That means he wanted me the most." She was smiling at me. I teared up and called her the best little girl in the world. But my daughter wasn't done. Then I told my teacher maybe she's just jealous because nobody picked her. I started laughing, and the next morning I came to school and reported the teacher anyway. But as she was leaving, I walked up to her and looked at her empty hand. "No engagement ring. Nobody actually picked you, huh?" My daughter wasn't joking, I guess. She started crying and walked out. I walked into the boys' bathroom and saw my student washing his hair in the sink. He looked up at me soaking wet and said, "I'm just getting ready for class," and tried to walk past me. I stepped in front of him and blocked the door. He got annoyed and told me to move, but I said, "Not until you tell me what's going on." going on. He stared at the floor for a long time and said, "My Nana works all the time, but she still can't pay the water bill." The next morning I left a towel and soap on the sink for him. He walked in and just stood there staring at it. That same day, I watched him in the cafeteria, taking small bites of his food so that it lasted the whole period. I started keeping granola bars in my desk, and every time his stomach growled in class, I'd slide one across his desk. Then the principal called me into her office. "You can't be leaving items in bathrooms or giving students food without approval." The following morning, I watched the custodian pull the towel and soap off the sink and toss them in the trash. Dion walked in a few minutes later and turned on the faucet. I went straight to the store that afternoon, filled the cart with soap, shampoo, a towel, and food for the week, and drove to his house. His Nana opened the door still in her scrubs, and when I told her why I was there, she grabbed the doorframe and started crying. "I work so hard, but it's never enough. He never tells me anything." I helped her pay the water bill that night and signed her up for assistance so it wouldn't happen again. A week later, I walked past that bathroom and it was empty. Dion was already at his desk. He'd left a granola bar on mine. My 18-year-old daughter walked through the front door holding hands with a scrawny college kid. As a veteran, I was not impressed, so I started putting him through what I called basic training every time he came over. I made him reorganize my entire tool shed and then told him he did it wrong, so he'd have to do it again. He just smiled and said, "Yes, sir, I'll get it right this time." That wasn't enough for me, so I took him on a 6-mile hike straight uphill, hoping he'd quit halfway and show my daughter his true colors. 3 hours in, he could barely breathe, but he never asked to stop. At the top, he pulled out his phone. He'd been taking pictures of wildflowers and rock formations the whole way up. I asked him why. "Emma loves nature photography, but she's never been this far out. I wanted to show her what she's missing." Then one night, my daughter called me sobbing. 3 guys followed her walking to her dorm. She was safe but shaking. I grabbed my keys and Herbert called before I got out the door. "Sir, she's with me. She's safe." He'd already picked her up, filed the report, and walked the path to her dorm with campus security. By the time I talked to my daughter, her roommate and her mom were already there because he'd called them too. He got back on the phone and went quiet for a second. "I know I'm not the tough guy you wanted for her, but I'm not going anywhere." When he asked for my blessing 6 months later, I handed him my grandfather's ring. He looked at it and his hands wouldn't stop shaking. I told him, "You already earned it, son." I got on the bus and paid my fare, but the woman sitting in front immediately started harassing me, shouting at the bus driver. He shouldn't be allowed on public transport because normal people like her don't feel safe. As a homeless veteran with one leg, I was used to this, and I tried to ignore it. But then she yelled for me to get off the bus. I told her I was only going to be on it for 5 minutes and was going to the cemetery to visit my wife. She made a disgusted face and said I should just lose my other leg already so I could end up next to my wife. A man in the back wearing a mask. Everyone gathered round and I took a deep breath, swinging it. And whoever doesn't sit in the next 5 seconds will get double the homework. He then went handing out the 5,000-word essay due in 7 days with a smile. But the kid just kept laughing and pointing at. But then suddenly he stopped and his face changed color. The bottle I'd flipped was standing. Turns out when he'd hit it, it bounced off the wall straight on and fell down landing perfectly upright. I'd officially flipped it 10 times in a row and he had no choice but to take the essays off our desks. His jaw was clenched the whole time. I was eating ice cream when every speaker in my house started playing the same song. When I tried to call the police, they just said, "It's not our problem that your Spotify got hacked." But they didn't know that I hadn't heard the song since I was 8 years old, eating ice cream at the kitchen table the night my brother killed our mom. It was his favorite song. 2 days later, I scooped another bowl of ice cream, and the same song started again. I tried to pause it, but someone kept unpausing it. I switched the song, and it switched back. I couldn't take it anymore, so I destroyed my fuse box. The next night, I grabbed the ice cream from the freezer. Before I even opened the lid, every TV turned on playing the music video to the song. I searched the house and found a Polaroid slipped under the front door. Our family photo from before Mom died. My face was scratched out and my blood went cold. Only my brother had that photo. My hands started shaking because it meant my worst fears were confirmed. I picked up the phone and called 911, and right when I did, my brother came through the back door. "Long time no see," he said, slowly walking towards me. "So, did you enjoy the music?" I stared at him back. "I've had a long time to think about you in prison. You know I almost got away with it, but you had to ruin everything." He lifted up his jacket to show his waistband that had a gun. He pulled the gun out and locked the front door behind him. Then he took out his phone phone and started playing the song at full volume. This is how it sounded that night, remember? He pointed it at me, and I backed into the corner. 3. He stepped closer. 2. He put his finger on the trigger. The door kicked in on 1. That's when the police flooded my home. My brother was arrested again, and I told him, "You should have just stayed in prison." My mom told me I was 1 in 1 million, but at 25 years old, I learned the truth. When I was born, doctors noticed my right leg was abnormally stronger than the other. They lied to my mom and ruled it out as a deformity. As I got older, I got into soccer and had naturally stronger kicks, but my left leg was in severe pain because it wasn't being utilized properly. I had to work out my left leg more so I could even them out, but it took the life out of me. When I started dating my now wife, we were on a hiking trip, and the entire time I was out of breath. I revealed to her I had lost all feeling in my left leg. She was so furious I hid that from her, and we flew to America. After tests for weeks and weeks, I finally got a conclusive answer about my leg. Unfortunately, in the womb, I had a twin. They were absorbed into my leg. I was asked if I wanted to remove the muscle mass from my leg, but I said I'd rather keep it. My leg is the only thing that gives my twin life. 2 zookeepers burst through my door and said there was a venomous rattlesnake in my bathroom. My wife Jenna was in that bathroom right now, bathing our 3-year-old daughter Nadia. The zookeeper said it was an eastern diamondback, the largest venomous snake in North America, and one bite could kill a child in minutes. Then I remembered something that made my stomach lurch. Nadia was obsessed with snakes. Videos, toys, everything. She told me 100 times that if she ever saw a real snake, she was going to grab it. The zookeeper held up a tablet showing a blinking red dot. "Tracker, the signal is coming from your apartment. Someone took it from its enclosure and tampered with your building's pipe system. There's an entry point leading directly to your bathroom." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Someone put it there on purpose?" He nodded. "We need to get your family out, now." We moved toward the bathroom slowly and quietly, and when I cracked the door open, my heart stopped. Jenna was in the tub with Nadia, bubbles everywhere, Nadia giggling and playing with a rubber duck, completely unaware that 5 feet behind them, a snake was coiled on the bath mat. As long as everyone stayed calm, we had a chance. Jenna saw my face first, then the zookeepers behind me, and her eyes went wide because we live in Florida, and she knew exactly what this meant. I put a finger to my lips and mouthed,